Alright, welcome back to, what is this, part 4 of creating somewhat of a fun little budgeting app in a modern design using MahApps.Metro. I like to call it the bootstrap of WPF because it defines some styling for us that we don't have to make on our own, which styling for me, especially with CSS and that kind of thing, is not really my forte. So if I can find a library like this, it really helps. And today we're going to specifically talk about buttons and font icons, and we're going to add a piece to this application where we can add budgets. It's not going to be the whole piece, but it's going to be the start of this piece. And if you like this kind of content, I just share what I learn along the way, and as I'm learning it, I like to regurgitate it and share it with you guys. And hopefully you benefit from that. And if you do, feel free to subscribe, or maybe you're just entertained, feel free to subscribe, and that way hopefully we can learn together. So if you want, you can go over to MahApps' website and go to the styles here on the left and click on buttons. And we're going to be talking about these different buttons today. And more importantly, when we're all done, we're going to create a button like this with a plus sign in it. So the user has a basic button with a plus, and in their mind, they're like, oh, that's how you add a budget. Hopefully that's what they think. And by the end of the video, that's what we're going to come out with. And also, by the way, if you're lost and you're like, I don't know what all this XAML is that he has in his WPF app, I will have it linked down below in a GitHub repository if you want to go check that out and grab the code. So some changes have been made since the last video. Up here we have, well, actually, let's go to the main grid. This right here is the main grid of the application. And if you remember in the last video, we added this status bar, which shows the remaining monthly budget, and it's just a static number right now. And then at the top, I have another grid inside of that. That's where we're going to be putting our buttons, or really just button for adding. But I'm going to show different buttons before we add the main one. And then down below, I have another grid. It'll be in this piece right here. And the right part of this grid is contributing to adding a budget. So that's where we'll get all of the different input controls, which we'll talk about in the next video. Like a date picker for the start and the end of the budget. And then you can add things to your budget as you need to. But we're not really worried about that. Right now, we're just worried about adding buttons and maybe a little functionality. When we press the add button, this part will show up and we can start editing our budget. So first things first, let's just show off the default button. You might remember it from the very beginning, but if we just do button and then inside I say like hello, and in this we're just going to put it in grid column 1, so it'll go right here. And let's go ahead and run this, and you can see the default button style. It's not very great. It's just a bland gray button, but maybe that's all you need, and maybe you can just stop there if that's what you can use. But we're going to take it a little farther than that. We are going to use some predefined styling from MahApps. So I'm going to do style is equal to static resource, and then MahApps.styles.button dot I don't know why it does this. It added this end tag there, and then dot square. So that is going to be the square button. So if we look at this, you can tell it looks a little bit different. It's white in the background and has a border, a black border around it, and the font is also different than the default. I'm just going to put this on my other screen, and then we'll also show the accented button. And the only difference between this one and the one we saw before is now it has the accent color of the app. So our app's accent color right now is this light blue. So now the background of this button is also light blue. So I don't know why I removed the accent. Let's put that back. Did that again. I don't understand what I'm doing. Accent. So I'm going to leave that right here. And then to the right, we're going to add a circular button and put an icon in that button, make it look a little more modern. Instead of just having like a square button that says add, I think this will look a little more up to date. So right beside this button, let's add another button. And we're also going to style this button. And we can say static resource is mahapps.styles.button circle. And we don't want the closing tag, actually. I want its own button closing tag because we're going to put something inside of this. And let's just test it out. I'm just going to say test. Inside of this button, we can see, well, I didn't put it in the right column. So let's also add it to grid.column is 2. And now you can see it's an oval. So the height of this button, it's just going to take up the available space. So if we wanted to, we can give it a height and width. So I'm just going to define a height of 50 and a width of 50. That way it's more of a circle, just like this. And while we're at it, it's kind of butted up against the top there. Let's actually make this 60, the height of that entire row. We'll keep the button height of 50, but we'll also give it a margin of 5. So now the top and bottom should be spaced a little bit. Oh, I guess we have to up that in the main grid too. Now it's not butted up against the top anymore. This one is, we didn't give this button a margin. We'll remove this button anyway, so it's no big deal. But now we have a circular button, and now I want to put an icon in it. More importantly, I want to put a plus icon so the user knows that's the icon to press to add. So inside of this button, we're going to use a MahApps custom control called a FontIcon. So instead of saying test inside of it, we're going to put something in here. Namespace is Mah, and then this is a FontIcon. In the font family, I'm just going to copy and paste from their documentation. You can feel free to type that out. And then the glyph, which corresponds to what kind of icon do we want to use, is going to be the and, the pound symbol, and an X, and then some kind of combination of E and a number to signify what icon that we're going to use. So really, if you want, I'm just going to copy this font family here. I'm going to Google it, and we can just see all of the different icons from this Microsoft documentation. So maybe you don't want a plus, maybe you want a different icon. This will show you all of the different icons down below. And how do I get this font? It says on Windows 10, there's nothing you need to do. It comes with Windows natively. So we don't have to worry about downloading anything for anyone to see these fonts as long as they're using Windows 10. And this particular one right here, see the E710? Is the one that I want. So I'm going to copy the E710, but you can, like I said, feel free. Maybe we'll have a settings to this as well, so we might make another button with the cog wheel. But for now, we're just going to use the plus. I'll go back and put it right here. And then at the very end, we want to give it a semicolon. And now if we save, here it is. Now we have an icon with the circular outline, and inside it is a plus. But I also want to change the styling of this. I want to make the background the accent color, and I want to make the plus sign itself white, which is actually pretty easy to do. So in the parent button, we're also going to add a background, and that value is going to be the static resource MahApps.brushes.accent. So now we save that and look, we now have the accent color as the background, but we don't have the white plus yet. To do that, we can say the foreground of this font icon is just going to be white. Now if I save, bring it over, there you go. Now we have a white icon. And let's remove this button. That was just for demonstration, so I'm just gonna take that out. And now, here we go. So now the only thing I really need to do is when I press this button, I want the form, I guess we'll call it, to show up where people can enter information about their budget that they're going to create. So let's give this button a name, and I'm going to say new budget button is the name of this. In the stack panel with all of the date pickers and text boxes and stuff, well, 2 date pickers, 1 text box, is called the budget stack panel. So let's remember that. And now I'll give this a click event. We'll say, give me a new event handler. And in the code behind now, we should see that event handler. So we can say if that budget stack panel dot visibility is equal to visibility dot collapsed, I guess I have to stop the app, meaning that, it's not visible, that form, then we can say budget stack panel dot visibility and set it equal to visibility dot visible. Okay, so let's run it now that we have that event handler, and you can see what happens when I hit the plus. Down below, we start to see some of the starting form. Now in the next video, I'm going to talk about parts of this form. I guess I got ahead of myself. We'll talk about how to get this watermark to show and everything else you see so far. And we'll probably add to this too, I'm sure, because there's more questions we probably need to ask before we save this budget. But for now, we at least got the plus button working and viewable. Now, if you wanted to change the color and stuff, you can feel free to change it other than the accent. So maybe you wanted to make it green. It's pretty easy to do. Instead of brushes.accent, you can change this whole thing to just green. But I'm going to keep it with the accent color for now. And thanks for watching. Hopefully you come to the next video and we check out how to add different fields and add styling to those fields like these watermarks. I think it'll be fun. So I hope to see you in that video.